Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Fallout Season 1. As you can see, I got some Fallout gear going. This is the Fallout 4 Collector's Edition Pip-Boy that they had at this point like 10 effing years ago is when Fallout 4 came out. Also check it out, they are doing the next gen update, I believe on the 24th. So in a couple days, they're going to be doing the next gen update. I'm excited for that. Who knows when I actually play it, but I'm looking forward to that. If you did not know, they're doing that. So aside from all the games being on sale, which might still be happening, I don't know if those sales have ended, they're also doing the next gen update for Fallout 4. So that should be pretty exciting. But just to talk about this, it's got two little lights, this light up here and the actual little power button. That's it. That's all it's got. It's got some things you can twist. It's got a cutout because this is not real. It was supposed to be for an old app, which does not exist anymore. Also, this never even fit my phone because I had an Android and it fit iPhones at the time. So it was like, of course, you know, I just got it and it was cool. And it does that. That's about the most magic you get out of that. It's like a really loud click. This spins around, has a tinier click. And that's about it. That's all you get. You could use it with the app. I messed around with the app, which connected to your phone back in the day when, we were doing that for a hot minute. I remember GTA had that, and then the first Division game, they really touted that up. If you go look back at that old thing, they were like, you know, and you'll be able to fly a drone around and it'll be like playing with your friends online. It was never the same thing. But because this is just as clunky as it is, this is going to be sitting on this little thing here as I do this review. So getting into it, there'll be spoilers in the second half of this. I'll let you guys know when we get there. And of course, you guys can skip to this time if you want to just jump ahead to spoilers. But non-spoiler wise, it was fun. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the three main characters that we got. Of course, we have Maximus and our Brotherhood of Steel character. We have Goosey McLean as our Fallout, classic vault dweller. And then unfortunately, I don't have any ghoul-based stuff. But if you want to go with Godzilla for the ghoul, radiation and irradiated things, we have the Ghoul as our super cool character, everybody's favorite, of course, played by Walton Goggins, who of course is awesome. Like once he was in Justified, that was the first thing I saw him in was Justified, and I was like, I like this dude. Anybody in Justified, I'm like, yeah, Walton Goggins. Hey, let's see it happen. So super cool. It's also funny seeing him on the other side of things. If you've seen Justified, you know I say that, but I thought that was really cool. So that was awesome to see him in this. All the characters I absolutely enjoyed. I thought they were really good. Definitely some interesting choices with them. Of course, that goes into some elements as far as spoilers and stuff like that, like some of the choices they made, some random things that happened, which also go into like the overall element of Fallout and stats and all that stuff, even like some of the official stuff that's come out. As far as like the character builds within the game, as far as if you were building the character within universe. So I'll talk about some of that in spoilers as well, but I enjoyed the characters. I would say Maximus was probably my least favorite just because of how they played his character. Like he was very interesting, once again getting the spoilers with some of the stuff they did with him, but they played on certain elements with his character where it was like, oh, okay, it's, you got three characters and the way they do it is like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Lucy is clearly the good character. She's the good vault dweller coming out, and it's like, okay, I think this is how the Ghoul is, and I'm pretty sure this is how Maximus is. But the way they play up the characters is like, I kind of can't tell 100% between the two, like who would be considered, like the bad and who would be considered the ugly. Obviously, the Ghoul would simply be the ugly based on visuals, but it was like, well, if he's the ugly, then that would definitely make Maximus the bad. So it's like, is that really how it is? So I thought that was interesting how they kind of played it up, and you'll see that as they kind of go throughout the first season. But I thought it was great. I like what they did with the characters. I thought it was really fun. The design, honestly, this has to be one of my favorite adaptations for a video game ever. Like I think genuinely just the pure design aesthetic of the entire series is like, wow, this looks legit like Fallout. I mean, it sounds simple enough to just be like, well, what if we just film where things are blown up, or we just film somewhere where it's really sandy? And it's like, well, yeah, that can seem like Fallout, but you also have to do a lot of stuff with it. And I think they did a fantastic job. Like they did stuff, obviously, there's tons of articles and things you can read where it's like the people making the show cared. Obviously, the most recent thing to come up, series wise at least, if it's not The Last of Us where it's like, oh, that's great, it's Halo, because of course Halo had season 2, and it was that. I never even bothered watching it, so I was fine from that because I'm not like super into Halo. But I know for people that love Halo, they had that first season and it was like, and then the second season came out. I heard it was like a tiny bit better, but still hasn't really been that great. It's not like it's been getting praise, because after that second season ended, all I've been hearing is like, well, Halo again. I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. It seemed like it started off and people were kind of getting what they needed, but then it still fell off by the end of season 2. So I'm sorry to all the Halo fans. Like Halo is such a huge franchise. I still remember the world premiere event for like Halo 3 coming out in Times Square. They shut down Times Square. They had people dressed like Spartans coming out and warthogs and crap at the big Toys R Us that used to be out there. And it's just like, man, that's messed up. Halo people don't get to have their show. But they did have that movie. I think it's still on Netflix. That was great. I absolutely love that. I can't remember the name of that, but that was absolutely fantastic. So definitely check that out if you like Halo and you feel like the show sucked. There's some Halo thing out there, and it's live action too. And I thought that was really, really well done. Osric Chow was like the main character in that, who was like Kevin from Supernatural. I'm just making random connections here, but definitely check that out if you have not seen it. But unfortunately, Halo is Halo. Fortunately, Fallout is Fallout, and I think it's really good. So if you haven't seen it and you're into Fallout, I don't know how you haven't yet, but definitely check it out. If you're not into Fallout, I think it's worth checking out because it's one of the few shows where it's like you can just watch it, and especially because it's not like The Last of Us where it's like, hey, here's The Last of Us, and it's the beginning of The Last of Us going through pretty much the entire first game. It's its own story within the set universe of Fallout, and technically it adds to the canon of the video games. So I thought that was, that just makes it even better considering I actually like the story. So that's, it's a bonus because that could have been really wrong. It could have been bad. Of course, there's a couple of discrepancies that people have discussed that have really pissed people. Like people have just like, some people fully hate it who are like super into the lore. I'm like a lot of people. I got into it with like, Fallout 3, and also it was like one of the very first video game record I ever got as a gift from a person. That bitch. Anyway, I barely get to make that reference. It's a funny in joke. But I really like the show. I think what they did with it, whether you, like I said, know the games or not, I think they did a great job with it. The aesthetics of it look like Fallout. The characters actually feel like Fallout. Like, and it's all the elements of Fallout, not just like the three main characters. Is like you have your Vault Dweller, you have your Ghoul character, you have your Brother of Steel character. They have characters that show up, and people are like, I know what perk that is because this dude is just kind of showing up in places and doing some weird things. So they definitely got like some of the super weird random aesthetics of just like, hey, this is a thing that happens aside from it just being, here's a costume that looks like this, or here's, multiple pit boys in certain scenes. Here's just a location that you might know, or here's some references that you might know from other locations based on the games. They just do a good job of, you watch the show and you're just in the world of it. It's like, yeah, this feels like Fallout. It's the reason that everyone's been playing the game. So they did a great job with that. Of course, at this point, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you haven't. Everyone's saying it's great. I personally think it's great as well. So definitely check it out. And at this point, we're going into full spoilers, and I'm gonna kind of just shoot through a bunch of stuff like really fast because it's so simple to really talk about. Like the characters I really enjoy. One of the few things that I thought was interesting was Maximus, and it's why he was my least favorite. And a lot of people say that is just as far as his character. At first it was like, okay, is he the bad character? Because the way they did the title cards is like, obviously Lucy's, it's like the good, the bad, and the ugly. It seemed obvious that the Ghoul would be the ugly, and then that would make Maximus just like the pure bad character. And of course they tease it in the beginning where it's like he knows like the only person that he's really a friend with is now gonna be a squire. So they're taking off, and it's like, oh, he's gonna be left alone. And then poof, all of a sudden there's a razor blade in the boot, and it's like, well, did you do it? Because that's kind of the consensus. And it's like, well, I didn't do it. But then it's like, well, did he do it? Because his friend is like, well, I said you wouldn't hurt a fly. And then he just has like that stone look on his face, and it's like, so would he not hurt a fly, or did he actually have to do it? And they're both kind of just in that pause moment, like, I don't know if you did or didn't, but I can't really say you did because you're my friend. Why would you do that? So it was interesting. It was a little hard to play. Like they were obviously doing it where it was like they're playing it up to see what type of character he's really gonna be. And obviously he lets the knight die, which I think anyone would, because the dude's just like, well, first off, he sent him in, and it's like, well, like you can see the tubes of radiation. I'm a dude in a jacket. You have armor. It's like, well, why don't you go in there anyway? Because I said so. It's like, okay, so this guy's a douchebag. And of course he took off running instantaneously. Although it was hilarious. As soon as it opened, I was like, is that Michael Rappaport? They just got random people in here like at random points, and that was super funny to me. So that was awesome to have Michael Rappaport just randomly show up, and he's just swearing like crazy and stuff. And then it's just like, they're gonna kill you for this and all this stuff. And it's like, you're not helping your case. And then of course he lets him die. Maximus takes over the suit, and then chaos ensues as he goes into Philly, and then they have like the whole meet up with all the characters. Lucy's doing her thing where she almost gets killed by giant roaches, which they did a great job making the rad roaches actually seem scary, because they're the rad roaches. Like that's the thing. It's like rad roaches and giant mole rats. It's like, oh, okay. Like that's the thing. Like you shoot them with BB guns in Fallout 3. It's like the starter test enemy. And then when they have the scene where Lucy's there at night, and then the doctor shows up with dog meat, he's like, oh, they've expanded to this. They always said, roaches would survive a nuclear apocalypse, but then they mutated and their antennae are longer, so it allows them to hunt in packs now, and their mandibles are tougher and all this other stuff. And it was like, when he really explains it, it's giant effing cockroaches. And then they have the scene later on in the series where Maximus is just stuck in his power armor, and the roaches just come in, and it's like, it's almost odd how instinctual it is that they just know, like, oh, let's go for the soft spots, and then they can just cut through, and basically they would have just eaten through the unprotected parts, and it would have just gotten to his skin, and they would have just bit through him, and like his arms would have came off, and they would have just eaten him while he was trapped. And that was an insane sequence. And then luckily for him, because we'll get to Maximus and his luck, Lucy showed up, boom boom boom, saved his life. So I was like, okay, that, you know, it was interesting how they talked about them. A lot of creatures unfortunately don't make an appearance. You know, we did get to see, of course, you know, rat roaches, I would say, had the most appearances. We got to have the Yaguai was like, you know, the thing that took out the knight in the power armor. Of course, we got a reference, I think it was like the last shot, or it was like just before the last shot, you know, we had a reference to the death claw because they had a skull there. So that was super cool. I think that might have even been in like the end credits when they were doing like the scroll through New Vegas. They might have shown, that might have been where they show like a death claw skull or something like that, but it was somewhere in there where it was like, oh, here's a skull for a death claw. Like they had to throw that reference in. But we didn't get the mole rats, not that I can recall, at least. We didn't get any bloat flies. I don't know how they're gonna do it, because people are gonna freak out so much, because people do it just in video games when it comes to spiders and scorpions are on like the same scale. I don't know how they're ever gonna do death stalkers, but I want to see it. I have to see those, because those things have scared me in the actual games. The first time I saw an albino death stalker, giant one, that scared the crap out of me. I literally, it was so blended in. This was Fallout 3. It literally was blended in to the mountains. I could not see it, and all I saw were these black dots. And this was, I don't ever remember if it was my second playthrough or if I probably had like already like 22 something hours into this game, and I had never come across an albino rat scorpion. And it was, of course, a giant one the first time. And I'm like, what are these black dots? And I'm just like, my brain couldn't register. Turns out if I was ever just in the wilderness, I'm fucked, because I'm just like, I don't know what these dots are. Camouflage, you will die. Like, it works in real life. It worked in a video game on me, so I'd be screwed. But the dots were just getting closer, and like right before it was about to hit me, which, you know, real life, I would have been, it would have been game over. I was like, ooh, I hit VATS, and then it was just right in front of my face. The whole screen was taken up. It was like, I didn't know there was albino scorpions in this game. So camouflage works, and it is deadly. So that scared me in that, and I can't wait to see them do that at some point, somehow, in live action. So I'm looking forward to that. However they end up doing it, hopefully we get to see that. I want to see Death Stalkers as well as Death Claws in season 2. So maybe we'll get those, maybe we won't, but there's still quite a few options as far as irradiated things here and there. So I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, what we get. I would say the Gulper was like the big thing that we got, because even the Yaguai was like, it was in there, and also it was killed instantly. That was one of the things I was like, you know, it was like he put one bullet to the head. It was like, could have been like a couple of shots at least. It was just like, like, oh, I mean, if he shot it like in the head 3 times, I'd have been like, okay, there's like 3 perfect headshots. Sure, it's not the video game where obviously everything has like super long health or whatever, but at least more than one shot, and it was just like an actual bullet to the head. I was like, it felt a little too realistic, which I know is insane to say, but I'm like, they also went really hardcore with like, hey, here's a stem pack, and they were just stabbing it in things, and then people just healed up. And it was like, but they did the Yaguai in like one headshot, and it was just like, it's over. So that was a little weird. Oh man, super clunky. We'll just leave that there. So that was a little weird, and I was like, oh, you know, a little quick. But other than that, I think everything was really cool. And then of course the stats come in as far as the characters are concerned, and also, you know, the timeline stuff. I know the Shady Sands thing with the 2277 stuff bugged a lot of people as far as the end of Shady Sands, and then they have the nuclear explosion a little bit after that, and it's like, okay, well, what's up with that versus what's going on with New Vegas and things like that? What counts as, you know, the canon ending now, all that stuff. There were some interviews, and that you can definitely look at, or at least there was like one big interview where they said it does not disrupt the continuity or canon of Fallout New Vegas. I know that was a huge thing where people were like, oh man, they just hate all the stuff Obsidian actually did. That's not actually the case. We will have canon New Vegas content, and whatever they decide is, you know, the canon ending, that will continue forward. So they're like, it does not disrupt it. I heard that they even had an actual date underneath the explosion, the nuclear explosion, and then they erased it because they realized it had continuity errors. So I think the way they're going to handle it is 2277 being the end of Shady Sands is going to be different than the second nuke dropping. And I know even that was a huge issue for people, where they were like, well, how'd they even get a nuke and stuff like that? I'm like, I feel like so many crazy things happen in the game where people just randomly do other insane things. I don't think them having a nuke in some way, shape, or form to like get the kids back, or, you know, Lucy's dad doing that, is really that insane. Because I'm like, considering some of the things we do in the actual games, it's like some people just like have stuff here and there. So I feel like they'll find a way to explain it. But for me, I'm just like, we've done so much insane stuff that counts as actually having been done in the game. I mean, they literally have like the mini nuke launchers, and it's just like you literally have weapons that shoot mini nukes. I'm not gonna be like, well, how do you get an actual nuke? I was like, it doesn't seem that crazy to me. So that's just me personally. I would love to know your thoughts on that, as far as like where he got the other nuke from and stuff like that. And I've heard people talk about like, well, why would he even attack Shady Sands, which I think makes, you know, perfect sense. Like, it just because Vault-Tec may have started Shady Sands, it's not the same people. It could have been, you know, based on how they do the ending, it could have been one of the other companies. And so like this section of Vault-Tec being I can't think of the guy's name, not Pete's pals, but whatever it was, you know, his kids or whatever, they would still want to do their own thing. So it still made sense, even if it was like, oh, well, that was, these people came from a vault. It'd be like, well, they didn't come from my vault, so we're gonna bomb them, because that kind of makes sense. It's Fallout. Everybody just be killing everybody, and it's wild and it's crazy. So that's how it is. I thought it made sense. I love the revelations at the end, and then of course, like the crazy moment where it's like, oh, you know, your mom is actually this ghoul that's been here this entire time, which one of the great mysteries, they go through a bunch of cool stuff, and then it's like the one great mystery we still have is, how in the world is Moldaver still alive? My theory, and they didn't do anything with it, and maybe they haven't really figured out what they're gonna do. It could easily just be like she was frozen at some point in time, because there were a bunch of people frozen in like a couple of different ways when it came to the vaults in the show. It was like, you know, like basically our main vaults had frozen people, Vault 4 had frozen people. So they really hit like the frozen thing where they're like, we're just gonna take that from 4, like Fallout 4, like that's just boom, we did cryogenics over here, cryogenics over there. Maybe she was in there at some point. I was hoping that they would do like a little hint where it was like, hey, she's actually a synth, and like she did actually die at some point and then was just replaced because the Institute was like, hey, she's kind of popular like way over here. And this is after Fallout 4, for anyone who didn't know that. This is the latest in the continuity. So that was my theory for, I think, maybe like 2 or 3 episodes. I was like, oh crap, what if she's a synth? And that's why, you know, she lived. Like at some point she was obviously actually there, and then, you know, something happened, and then this, you know, the synth side came out. But that doesn't seem to be the case. They probably can't really do that unless they do it where, I mean, obviously, as far as the synth, like synths actually believe that they're human, so when they like die, they believe they die. So they could play that up if we go into season 2 and it's like someone within the Brotherhood of Steel is an Institute spy, which, you know, they literally kidnap people in the middle of the night to replace them. They could easily throw that right into season 2 and be like, oh yeah, they just hit a button or something, and it turns out, oh, she was a synth the whole time. Like she died at some point in the past, and then they'll be like, yeah, she's a synth. So that might be what they end up doing for her character, but that's like the big mystery as of now. Is like, I think they answered kind of all the other stuff, and they did some really cool stuff with that. One of my favorite things was Lucy, like super early on, was like, you know, until I was 6, I believed that, you know, our projector was the sun. Is like, man, I swear I could feel it, the heat, like, you know, baking my skin. And then when we get to the end and we realize that, I would assume it was her and her brother actually did end up leaving the vault at some point when she was a little kid. I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like she was like, oh, you know, I was a kid. I thought I literally like felt the sun on my skin, and she did. I was like, that was actually a cool little bit of like foreshadowing with that. So I like how they handled that. I like the little twist there. You know, all the like they had, you know, it was like the super crazy epic reveal, and it's like they're showing the flashback stuff, and Cooper is like listening in on his wife, and then, you know, she hits the war, never changes, like, what if we do this and do that? And then of course, you know, Lucy's dad comes in with the CG and everything. Right before that, Cooper calls the woman Betty, and we find out that Betty was another one of the people, like she was in the flashback, so she was the assistant back then. I was like, oh, this is super cool. Like it was all effed up, but I was like, this feels so good. And it was just fun that they dive so hardcore into the Vault-Tec stuff, because honestly, despite all the madness of Fallout and being in like a 50s apocalypse style with super mutants and all this stuff, I just love the fact that Vault-Tec is so dark, and you just find vaults, and it's like the Gary vault is like my favorite vault ever, because it's so creepy to me. But all the vault stuff is just like my favorite thing in Fallout. So the fact that they touched so hardcore on that, they literally gave us the origin of like the Vault Boy, thumbs up, it's Cooper Howard. So they did so much with that. I was like, man, I'm stupid, because I was like, I wonder what they're gonna do in Fallout. I didn't even think about the fact that they would just dive into Vault-Tec, but it was like, that makes perfect sense. Like the origins of Vault-Tec, what they did, how they facilitated the bombs dropping, and obviously leads into some continuity errors as far as who dropped the bombs, because we were told that it was the Chinese who did it, which we didn't know until like, I think this year, which was never supposed to be like official. It was like, oh, you guys didn't know that? Because the creator said that, and it was like, oh, I mean, I guess it's whoever. So that like just came out anyway as an official thing. But even that was meant to be a mix-up, where it was like they didn't do it on purpose. It was like a mix-up thing, so they could still kind of line that up even within that Vault-Tec kind of kind of push people to be like, oh, we think this is happening, and that's how it works out. But all in all, I loved it. I was like, continuity errors aside, which I don't think they're really that big of a deal. Obviously, they kind of save themselves by kind of erasing some things here and there, but I think they'll be perfectly fine to just be like, yep, this is the exact year. A lot of shows do it where they might mess up something and then they'll just be like, hey, just kind of ignore that. Like, there's so many shows where that sort of thing happens, where they'll just correct the mistake and be like, yeah, our bad, but going forward, we got it right. So I think even now it's like kind of loose, but I don't think they've done anything that actually messed anything up anyway. So I'm happy with it. All in all, I think the visuals were great. The story was great. Even like the actual emotional stuff is great. I can't wait to see what they do with Cooper Howard and him possibly actually finding his wife and daughter in the future, or I guess the present at this point. There's still so much we need to know as far as the flashbacks, because all we see is, when the bombs drop, all the other flashbacks are before the bombs drop. So it's like, that's the first flashback we get is the latest flashback we actually have. And it's like, well, what the heck happened? Like, where did he go on that horse with his daughter? And then it's just like, boom. Because, we get to the end of the series and it's like, where's my family? And I'm like, well, I thought for sure they were toast. But then you go through the, most of that season, it's like, well, maybe they're not. Maybe they got into the vault. Obviously, his wife knows more than she's letting on. It's like, we got to get into the good vaults. And it's like, well, what the F does that mean? So a lot of stuff popped up there. I'm sure she'll be alive. I'm curious how they'll handle the stuff with the daughter. Like, it would be so crazy. Like, they already pulled so much stuff as far as like, I'm going out to look for my dad and this and that. It's like, there's no way they're just gonna be like Fallout 4 again and just be like, oh, my daughter took over this thing, she's actually older and all this stuff. So I'm curious how they're gonna play that, because I think his daughter has to age. I don't think she'll be totally frozen at the same age. So I'm curious how that's gonna play. I'm very excited to see what they do with season 2 and everything going forward. Seeing some of the new monsters, seeing some of the new locations, which obviously they're going to touch on all the New Vegas stuff. So I'm excited for that. I need to actually beat New Vegas, because I put like 20 something hours into that, fell off, and then I started it up. And as you do with a game that you haven't played for like 3 years, especially if it's a Fallout game, you're just like, I don't know what I have or have not done, who I have or have not pissed off potentially. So I just got to restart that whole game, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess. But I'm looking forward to obviously getting back into that game. Looking forward to season 2. We'll love to know what you guys thought about this season as a whole. Characters, the world design, the in jokes, like the squires carrying the bag is like a giant joke to having your companions carry everything so you're not over encumbered. But it also makes a lot of sense that they could add that in, where if a Brotherhood of Steel soldier is on their own, or the squire dies, they could easily, they have super strength, they could just toss that bad boy on. Because it made sense, because the whole time I was like, why does it have one strap? That doesn't make any sense. The bag is literally made for the person in the armor, but they're just such assholes as a complete collective that they just make the person who can't carry it carry everything. They don't even, he literally has like the long rifle in that. They don't even pull that junk out the entire series. He does not pull out like the long rifle to use it at any point in time. But I was like, the whole time I was watching them, and this was after Maximus got like Thaddeus, he got the bag. He had the rifle. He had like the full plasma rifle in there, and it was just the top. The whole series, I was like, I think I'm gonna use the plasma rifle, and he never does, but it's in that bag like the whole time. And I was like, that's crazy. They just had it in there. Like, you see like the small plasma pistols. I was like, that rifle is in there the whole series. He's just lugging that plasma rifle around, and they just never pull it out. And I always thought that was so silly, but it's such a dumb in joke, but I thought it was a really great joke, and I would love to see them actually. That would actually be funny if they did implement that into the games, and like, oh yeah, something they started on the West Coast and then they finally brought it over. Like, it makes it really easy to carry all our stuff. Like, they could easily like slap that in the Fallout 5, but absolutely love the show. Makes me want to play the games, but I got a million other games that I need to play. But we'll love to know, like I said, what you guys thought about Fallout, the entire season, what you guys hope for, theories, of course, for season 2 as well, what characters you guys would like to see pop up, if they bring anyone in, from the games, if they, kind of a reference here and there. They'll be interesting to see, and obviously, especially with them going to New Vegas, they're gonna probably, they're gonna have some references to somebody. Like, someone's at the very least, someone's gonna get name dropped. Like, there's no way you go to New Vegas and they don't be like, yeah, Mr. House. Like, there's no way you don't just say that in some way, shape, or form. Like, there's just not possible. So that'll be interesting. Considering I don't know what leads up to the canonical ending of, like, because a lot of people believe that it's New Vegas being destroyed as a canonical ending. I don't know if Benny is still alive during that, and unfortunately Matthew Perry was the one who voiced him, and sadly he passed away. So it would have been cool to have him in there, because he actually loved the games, which is why he was excited to voice that character. So it is very unfortunate that he passed away, because they totally would have had him in there, because he would have been like of course, I would love to be in the Fallout show. So it's unfortunate that happened, but I'm very excited for whatever we're gonna end up getting for season 2. So like I said, we'd love to know your thoughts and theories on season 1. Well, I guess I should say thoughts on season 1. What theories did you guys end up getting wrong? For me personally, it's the synth thing, because I feel like that's something that you wouldn't have to make up for season 2, because it's so easy to just be like, well, we'll just make her a synth. But they put nothing in there, so I think they're leaving it open because they want to find like what's the best way to just explain how she lived for so long, Moldaver. So I think they just kind of left that open because they're like, maybe we'll do synth, maybe we'll just do whatever. Once again, they were throwing cryogenics out like it was nothing in this. Like it's almost odd that 2 straight vaults were like, yeah, we cryogenically froze people. So that might be the route that they're kind of going, which once again, coming off of the last Fallout game, is like, oh, there's 3 vaults that I know that specifically did cryogenically frozen stuff. The purpose was very different, of course, but they were freezing people for different things. So we'll see what happens with season 2, but like I said, want to know what you guys thought about this one for the millionth time, what you guys thought about this season. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.